In this episode of our best of season, we are good to grow. I'm Cat Neville, and this is Feast TV. For this episode of our best of season, I went back into the archives and I pulled out some more of my favorite farm segments. You guys know I love going to the farms, but I think you're really going to enjoy the journey that we go on together during this half hour. And as the episode progresses, I'm going to be making a roasted red pepper soup. It is super easy to make, and it's using Summer Bounty of just really easy to find ingredients. So before I get started, let's head to Kansas City and meet the family that has built their own off-the-grid farm at Urbavore. You would never know it, but I am standing in the urban core of Kansas City, Missouri, and today you are going to meet Brooke and Dan, two people who are setting the standard for what it means to run an urban farm.
I had been living in San Francisco and traveling all over the world and coming into my own, trying to figure out the meaning of life. I tell people, in order to sustain my travels, I worked on organic farms in exchange for room and board. And that kind of, for the first time in my life, grounded me, gave me something to focus on, gave me a passion that I felt was actually worthwhile. About 10 years ago, I moved back to Kansas City, started a small farm. I wanted to feed myself and sell the excess. 2 years into that, my now husband Dan joined me and we sort of tripled our production and we were making a living off it. You know, this tiny little acre area was making about $30,000 a year in vegetables, so it was lucrative. Unfortunately, not all our neighbors were as excited about it as we were. Basically, our neighbors decided that the presence of a farm or a large garden would bring down their property values. And they approached the city and they told us that if their property values plummeted, it would allow poor black families to move into their neighborhood and that our farm needed to be abolished. And it got extremely ugly, turned into a huge sort of blowout between community gardeners and food activists, environmentalists like us versus the bourgeois. You know, I don't know how else to put it. It, you know, became about social justice. It became about personal empowerment. You know, the racism piece and the discrimination was just unthinkable. So we fought back, and long story short, we were forced to move on from that farming situation. We were planning on leaving Kansas City, but lo and behold, we found this 13.5 acre piece of blighted, you know, underutilized land, and we fought the city to purchase it, which is its own very long story. The city spent $20,000 a year to keep this property mowed for over 20 years. That's a lot of money. When we purchased the land, the first year we were on it, we grew $40,000 worth of food. So it just goes to show, when I say, you know, land is wasted or underutilized, it truly is. And not only is it wasted, it's a strain on the people living in the city. In 6 years that we've been here, we've grown about close to $400,000 worth of food on this property without water or electricity. When we purchased the land, it was completely raw. We had to put in fencing. We started a citywide composting program. We spent 4 years building an off-grid water system. The farm is essentially self-sustaining. So, I mean, it's pretty wild and pretty awesome, and basically unheard of in any city across America. So this was our spring vegetable field. and a lot of these beds have been turned over and we're planting fall stuff in here. So there's sweet potatoes there, there's salad turnips, these are black Spanish radishes under here, watermelon radishes under the row cover, and more varieties of turnips. And finally there are leeks peeking out of the weeds there. So,
I mean, things are growing everywhere on this farm.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter where you step, there is something that's alive.
right. It's just sort of an edible oasis, and there's just so many layers of life everywhere.
How did you learn this?
We sort of taught ourselves, and yeah, it did take years to develop our systems and perfect them, and every day we're still developing, perfecting.
And you're financially sustainable. I mean, you are making a profit.
Amazingly so. Every single penny we make goes back into the farm. Every little piece of infrastructure you see on the farm. It was all paid for with beets and turnips grown on this land.
It's been a process. It's been a long process. I try not to put a lot of meaning onto it as far as what it means, you know, sort of socially or in this larger context. I try to focus on what it means for us, what it means for our livelihood and our life. This is where our family is. This is our land. This is something that we take care of all aspects of it.
So we have a passive solar earth-burned home. I tell people it's kind of like a modern-day Hobbit House. That's the Hobbit House.
It is so cute.
Stan's masterpiece. It's built with all natural materials as much as the city would let us, so it's almost 100% non-toxic.
Wow, this is beautiful.
It's covered with earth, and it's incredibly insulative, so we have no heating or cooling. We have a wood-burning cook stove, composting toilet, and yeah, it's like nothing you would see anywhere. So it's unfinished, but it's
beautiful.
It's beautiful. And the view, I mean, you can't.
No, it's gorgeous.
We're not wealthy people, but whenever I see that view, I feel wealthy.
You've built that. You didn't have to buy it.
Yes, I agree. We're into living simply, giving back more than we take. And that fuels us, that gives us purpose. And I know that's not how everyone works, but that's how we work. And that's what makes us happy.
I'm inspired by this, what you've built here and the amount of effort that you've put in to reclaim the land, to give back to the community. I think what you've done is incredibly special.
Thank you.
You should be very, very proud of it.
Thank you so much.
I love their house. It is like this perfect little Hobbit house. And you know, when you're standing inside and you look out and all you can see are the farm fields and the flowers, it is pretty much the definition of idyllic. So this soup, it is a roasted red pepper soup. It obviously begins with roasted red peppers, and for magic of television, I went ahead and roasted these before we started shooting. Now, I put these on my grill last night, and what you want to do is on the highest setting, you want to go ahead and put these peppers directly on the grate. Don't oil them, don't do anything, leave them whole, and let them cook until they are charred and starting to collapse. You can also pop them in your oven under the broiler and do the same thing. So when you take your peppers off of the grill or out of the oven, you want to immediately steam them. That is what is going to make it so easy to peel. You can see I'm just talking to you and just kind of like slipping these skins off. So you can put them in a paper bag and roll that up. You can put them in a Tupperware container. If you are broiling them on a cookie sheet, you can just take that cookie sheet out of the oven, cover it with tin foil, and let it sit. So you want it to steam for at least a good 20-30 minutes before you put these guys in the fridge. So I'm going to stand here for the next 5 minutes or so while you head back to Kansas City and get behind the scenes at BoysGrow. This is a nonprofit that brings young boys onto the farm to learn a new set of skills.
I started BoysGrow in 2010. I was working in Northern California for a foster care system, and I had one kid in particular that was shipped out to the country, and he got to go work on a kind of a small functional farm, and he just loved it. So the responsibility of taking care of his goat that he had, the small garden plot that he had, he loved being a part of that system. So it was my idea to create a system similar to what he experienced on that foster family.
And how long is their experience? Is it just one season, or do they get to come back?
Yeah, it's a 2-year program.
Okay.
So that's one thing that we stress initially, because the things you're going to do here, we can't teach you these things overnight. And we need to know that you're going to be invested in this, you're going to be a part of it. If we could take them for 6 to 10, we would. But the reality is we take them for 2, and then hopefully all the skills and traits and knowledge and mentorship and all that stuff they get thrown at them within 2 years, they can carry on the rest of their life.
Well, first we come in, we do our bucket check, see what we all have. Then they'll split us up into our groups. Me and Brian are part of the culinary group. There's agricultural, there is, you can finish that off for me.
There's construction, there's marketing, there's public speaking.
And then there's a design team.
We're digging a hole in preparation of Howard Hanna's dinner at our farm next Sunday.
We are going to roast a pig so that we can have it for our dinner.
The dinner it's like a fundraiser dinner for us. So all the money goes to BoysGrow.
Almost like a charity.
I met John in 2011, and he pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, came in with, I think he had a whole bunch of cabbage the first time we talked, and they had it in 5-gallon buckets, and I didn't know who they were or what they were doing, and right away I kind of got the sense that it was some sort of mentorship program, and that the boys were the ones that did the talking, and I loved the way he interacted with them, that they were, trying to sell produce to a restaurant, but at the same time he would say things to them like, make sure you look them in the eye, make sure you shake hands firmly, and I could tell he was teaching them how to navigate different parts of the world, not just the agricultural side of it that they do here on the farm.
What I think is so brilliant about this particular program is it's not just getting kids out onto a farm to learn how to grow tomatoes and cucumbers, but you take them through the life cycle of creating a product, learning how to market the product. When do you decide what product you're going to make, and then do the crops that you grow, is that based on that, or how does that work?
It's always exciting every year, when these kids are young and they have the opportunity and the responsibility to come up with a product. Sometimes a little overwhelming for them. So we have to kind of assist them and guide them in different directions. But at the end of the day, usually we chisel it down to about 3 products, and then they'll vote on all 3 of them. And then whatever gets the most vote, that's the product that flies.
And this year it is?
This year we're doing a tzatziki salad dressing.
We're at Hy-Vee, Whole Foods, mom and pop stores. It's pretty much all over the place. Like, I'll walk past it and I'll look to the right like, hey, I made that. I'll be so happy about myself, and people will walk past and look at it, and there's a button there that will tell our history of BoysGrow, and they'll look at it and they'll usually buy it. It's very heart-lifting.
It's great. It's just like, I come across it one day and I'll just be like, hey, I did that. And then it's just great.
I really think BoysGrow probably is life-changing for just about any of them that would go through the program. And I don't think the expectation is that they go out and start a farm when they get out of school, or that they want to be a chef and own a restaurant. I think that growing food and raising food and selling it and learning how it's treated with, and served to people is all a teaching tool to show them things about life.
It's almost like family here. We both know each other on an intellectual level. We are almost like brothers to each other. I hope it'll last together forever.
I mean, I'm still here and I graduated this year, matter of fact. I'll keep coming back.
Pride, commitment, respect, BoysGrow! Woo!
So if you're in the Kansas City area, you can find the BoysGrow products in your local grocery store. So go out there and buy them and support those guys in their mission. It's wonderful the way that they're teaching these kids how to farm, and also the business skills of creating products. It's a wonderful, wonderful concept. All right, peppers are done. They kind of look like pepper carpaccio. So I'm just going to dice up my onion. I'm going to smash a few cloves of garlic, cut some of these cherry tomatoes in half. Then we're going to head over to the stove. I have a few glugs of olive oil in my pot, and it's heating on medium-high heat. It smells really fragrant. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my onions. Caramelizing onions takes a little bit of patience, just like all cooking. So I'm gonna let this kind of sit and do its thing. And while I do that, let's head to Southern Illinois and meet the folks behind Scratch Brewing. It's not technically a farm. They do grow some things there on the property, but what they do is they forage for the ingredients they put into their beer. Check it out.
I met Marika and Ryan at several different beer tasting events, and we would always bring our homebrew there, and so they tasted mine and I tasted theirs, and Marika wanted to start a brewery and Ryan did as well, so we all wrote down what our ideal brewery would be, and they all kind of lined up on paper, so then we decided to take 3 years and figure out how to make it work. So this is the end result.
I, for some reason, was reading some reviews on our place not too long ago, and one of them mentioned they thought that it was kind of similar to maybe an alternate universe where the hippies won, Ronald Reagan was never elected president, and there's free healthcare for everybody.
When I first started homebrewing, I was just starting to get really interested in kind of the locavore movement with food. And so naturally, I started using all the ingredients that I was finding from my local farmers and in my backyard in the beer that I was brewing.
The very first part of this brewery that we installed were the hop trellises. I think we have maybe 15 or so in the ground out there as part of our trellis system. One of our missions in making beer is we want to make a beer that's, pretty unique to this area.
Just like our beer, we do different soda every week. It's seasonal, just like everything else. Just last week, Aaron went wandering through the woods and came back with 5 or 6 different leaves and bark and roots and all kinds of stuff. And we threw it into the soda and carbonated it, and I think it'll taste great with gin.
Why we decided to start doing wood-fired pizzas in the first place, I'm not completely sure, other than that they're awesome, and it's, the traditional pizza. That's kind of originally how they were cooked, This is our wood-fired oven. Aaron built this entire thing. Please take note of that. We do bread and pizza in here on the weekends.
I built the oven it took me a year to build it, but the reason we chose to use a wood-fired oven is because it makes the best pizza and the best bread. So there was no alternative to that. So recently I've been gathering pawpaws, and what makes them so unique is that they're a tropical fruit that grows in temperate regions.
I think caramelizing the pawpaws would be good. Or
How are we going to do that?
Cook them down. Like the other night whenever I made my snack.
We should put our maple syrup in it. We should caramelize it with our maple syrup.
That would be good.
So so we're going to skin these. We're going to pick out all of the meat.
Just mash them.
Just put them in the colander. Put them in the colander and then cut them into quarters.
Put that in ice cream and then put the ice cream in the beer.
All right, so we've made ice cream.
The perfect beer for an ice cream float.
Oh man. It's such a big and daunting process. It's expensive. It takes so much time and effort that we figured we were better as a trio than any one of us were singularly.
The beers they make down there at Scratch are delicious. If you have a chance to drive down to to visit them. They're near the Shawnee National Forest. You should make the journey. It is well worth the time. My onions are nice and fried. Time to add in those beautiful peppers, cherry tomatoes, and my garlic. This is the reserved juice from the roasting of the peppers. That's going to add a lot of flavor. I'm going to let that simmer for just a second, and then I'm going to add in 4 cups of veggie stock. And this I'm going to allow to simmer for another probably 15 minutes or so. So let's head to St. Louis at a farm that is on top of a roof. Welcome to Urban Harvest Stl. This is an urban rooftop garden that is situated right on the edge of downtown St. Louis. We're going to meet its founder today and find out how this nonprofit was created.
So Urban Harvest Stl started in about 2011, and our first project was a community garden. We just wanted to start growing food in the neighborhood. And since then we've scaled up, and now we have an urban farm. We still have a space for people living in the neighborhood to grow their own food for themselves and their families, but the rest of the farm is essentially managed by our farm manager and interns and volunteers, and the majority of the food actually goes to our partners in the community that help us get the healthy food into the hands of people that don't necessarily have access to it. I'm actually a recovering architect. Rather than designing buildings per se, now I'm designing community spaces on top of buildings. So I'm really cross-pollinating agriculture and architecture.
So you're an architect. What was your vision for this?
The design of the food roof really revolved around our interest in making this a community experience. So front and center, where the best view is of downtown and city museum, that's where we created this community hub space where we can host different events. And we really wanted a farm to be surrounding that area, so people really got a unique experience.
How did you decide what you wanted to grow? I see a lot of peppers and eggplant.
There are a lot of peppers and eggplant. We're actually growing over 100 varieties of plants up here.
Wow.
So primarily vegetables, a lot of herbs, some flowers as well.
What's the volume that you can produce up here?
We expect it to be way over 3,000 pounds at the end of the year. And each year, as we get better and better at this, we expect that number to grow.
That's amazing. All of your herbs, they're beautiful. Everything is just so healthy looking.
So farming on a rooftop is actually quite a bit different than traditional farming on the ground. We only have 8 inches of soil up here. So we're learning how to grow in less soil. We're learning how to grow with less water. We're trying to be as efficient as we can. So there's some disadvantages, but the advantage is we can grow food anywhere if we're growing on a rooftop. So this is the green roof system that we're standing on top of. Essentially, this is the roof membrane, just like any building would have. This is a capillary fleece, and on top of that is what you call a retention board. So these 4x4 cups are laid out across the entire roof, and they capture rainwater. So anytime it rains, we capture about 2.5 inches of rain, and that equates to about 17,000 gallons of water across the rooftop.
It's just an amazing system. I mean, when you walk up, it just looks like a bunch of happy plants sitting on a roof, but it's a really complicated...
It's more than just throwing soil on a roof and going from there. There's a lot of thought and intention behind it.
What is this?
This is a vertical garden. It's a new vertical growing system that leverages these garden socks that are full of lightweight soil.
Why did you choose to grow specifically the greens on the wall?
Primarily because of the space limitation.
Oh, okay.
We don't have enough depth to grow root vegetables, obviously, and with greens, we figured we could, cut and come again and just get a constant harvest out of them. This is a greenhouse. This is where we propagate our crops before we put them out in the fields. And then on the other side, we grow microgreens that we then sell to some nearby restaurants as an additional revenue stream for our organization. There's nothing better than watching a chef come up here and see their eyes light up. The idea of literally picking fresh herbs to garnish their plates that they're then serving directly to people, I mean, it doesn't get any more local or more fresh than that.
You taste a little bit like a sunflower seed, but with kind of that green, almost chlorophyll flavor to it. I love those things.
I love putting them on pizza with hot sauce. There's nothing better than hot sauce and microgreens on pizza. I'm just saying.
You're coming from an architecture field and you're kind of melding that passion with wanting to create something that really is going to benefit the community. What is the feeling that you get by doing this work?
It is immensely gratifying. I think the best part is just all the wonderful people that are engaged in this project, and the impact that we're having by getting the food to people that need access to healthy food, and then building a community of educated people that are engaged in the local food system. We're doing so much more than just growing food up here. It's an education platform, so we host a lot of events and opportunities for people to get engaged. It's the first rooftop farm in downtown St. Louis, and we just want to continue to grow urban farms and serve the community in that way.
It's great to see the explosion in urban farming because it not only increases accessibility for fresh produce in urban areas, it also cuts down on all the carbon and all of the pollution that is required when things are being trucked across the country. So the closer that you can source your veggies, the better. And we are just about finished with our soup. Next step is to go ahead and puree it. And then I'm going to stir in my cream. If you're looking for the recipe for this soup, all you have to do is go to feastmagazine.com. We have everything there inside of the Feast TV section. You'll find the recipes from every single Feast TV episode we've ever shot. Okay, I'm going to take this off the stove and I'm going to ladle it up. To finish off our soup, I'm going to top it with some crumbled feta and a little bit of parsley. I love this soup because it's incredibly simple. The beautifully kind of smoky flavor of those red peppers shines right through, and it's complemented by the garlic and the onion. It's delicious. I hope you enjoyed this farmy episode as much as I did, and I will see you next time.